The metal bleachers at Maidu Regional Park were still cold in early March, the kind of cold that seeped through jeans and made you shift your weight every 30 seconds. Carla had brought a foldable chair, she always did, the kind with a cup holder, and a bag slung over the back for sunflower seeds and a spare jacket. She set it up behind the third base line, far enough from the other parents that she wouldn't have to make small talk, close enough that Jake would see her when he took the field. He was 11, in his second year of Little League, and he had Greg's swing, level, patient, the kind that waited for the pitch it wanted instead of swinging at everything. Carla had spent 3 Saturdays in a row 2 years ago pitching to him in the park behind her condo, telling him to keep his elbow up, to breathe, to stop thinking so much. He'd gotten a double that day, and run the bases like his feet were on fire. She'd cried in the car on the way home, which was stupid. It was just Little League, but she'd never had kids of her own, and Jake was the closest thing she'd ever gotten. The game started. Jake led off the second inning and grounded out to short. Carla clapped anyway. A woman 2 rows ahead turned around, gave her a quick smile, then turned back. Carla didn't know her name. That was fine. She was reaching into her bag for the sunflower seeds when she heard Tasha's voice. "There she is," Tasha said, not quietly. "The woman who won't pay a dime for these kids but sure loves showing up to act like she cares." Carla's hand stopped inside the bag. She didn't turn around. She knew Tasha was behind her, somewhere near the snack bar area, because Tasha always positioned herself where she could be seen. The voice carried, the way it always did, pitched just loud enough that everyone within 20 feet would hear, but just casual enough that if you called her on it, she could say, "What? I was just talking to my friend. She makes 6 figures, Tasha went on, and she won't help with Mia's tuition. Won't help with Jake's team fees. Calls herself family but won't open her wallet. That's financial abuse if you ask me. Using money to punish kids because you're mad at their mom." A murmur. Carla could feel it, the way a group of people shifts when something uncomfortable is being said. Someone cleared their throat. A soda can cracked open too loudly. Carla stood up. She folded her chair slowly, methodically, the way she did everything. She didn't look at Tasha. She slung the bag over her shoulder and walked toward the parking lot, her sneakers crunching on the gravel path. She made it to her car, a 2019 CRV, paid off, the one thing she'd kept in the divorce that she actually cared about, before her hands started shaking. She sat in the driver's seat and stared at the steering wheel for a long time. The parking lot was half empty. A minivan backed out 2 spaces over. Somewhere a kid was laughing. She and Greg had been married for 12 years. 12 years of Sunday mornings and tax returns, and the quiet accumulation of a life that neither of them had bothered to examine too closely. No kids. They'd tried. It hadn't happened. And then at some point they'd stopped trying and hadn't talked about why. The divorce had been clean, almost friendly. They'd split the equity on the house, paid off the credit cards, signed the papers in a conference room in downtown Sacramento with a paralegal who'd looked like she'd rather be anywhere else. Greg had met Tasha 3 months later. 8 months ago they'd gotten married in the backyard of the house they rented in Rocklin, a 4-bedroom with a pool that Carla knew they couldn't really afford because Greg had told her, over coffee one afternoon, that Tasha had a vision, and he didn't want to crush her spirit. Tasha had 2 kids, Mia, 14, and Jake, 11. Their father was Derek Reyes, a contractor who Tasha described variously as a deadbeat, a ghost, and not worth the air he breathes. Carla had never met him. Tasha had made sure of that. The money request had started small. $100 for Mia's field trip, then $300 for Jake's baseball cleats and a glove. Then Tasha had called her, not texted, to ask if Carla could contribute to Mia's private school tuition. "She needs stability," Tasha had said. "You know what that's like, having a stable home. She doesn't have that right now." Carla had said no. She'd said it nicely, the way she said everything, with a softening around the edges, and "I'm sorry, but." She wasn't their mother. She wasn't their stepmother anymore. She wasn't anything to them, legally, and she'd thought, foolishly, that the relationship she'd built with Mia and Jake over the years was its own thing, separate from money, separate from Greg, separate from all of it. Tasha had not taken the no well. Carla turned the key in the ignition. The CRV's engine turned over, steady and reliable. She put it in reverse and checked the backup camera. As she pulled out of the space, she glanced at the field. Jake was on deck, swinging a bat over his shoulder, and he was looking right at her. He raised his hand, a small wave. Carla waved back. Then she drove away. She was on the highway, 10 minutes from home when her phone buzzed. Then again. Then a third time. She waited until she was stopped at a light on Douglas Boulevard before she picked it up. 3 texts, from a number she didn't recognize. "You should be ashamed of yourself. Those kids deserve better than a selfish ex-wife. Everyone at the field knows what you are." Carla stared at the screen. The light turned green. The car behind her honked. She put the phone down and drove. She didn't know who the number belonged to. She didn't know how many people at that field had heard Tasha, or how many believed her, or how many would repeat it by Monday at school drop-off. She didn't know if Jake had heard, or Mia, or if Greg was even there to see any of it. What she knew was this: she had spent 12 years being the reasonable one, the calm one, the one who didn't make scenes. And somewhere along the way, reasonable had become a door that anyone could walk through. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was a number she did recognize. Nadia. She almost didn't answer. Then she did. "Carla," Nadia said, and her voice was tight in that way it got when she was trying not to yell. "Tell me you did not just leave Jake's game because Tasha Halloran opened her mouth." Carla opened her mouth to say something. Nothing came out. Outside the car, Roseville stretched out in all directions, distance, strip malls and housing developments and the pale gold of the foothills in the distance, everything looking normal, everything looking like nothing had happened at all. Carla called Greg on Sunday morning. He answered on the fourth ring, which meant he'd looked at the screen and debated whether to pick up. "Hey," he said. His voice had that guilty brightness to it, the one he used when he knew he was in the wrong, but wanted to pretend everything was fine. "Can we meet?" Carla said. "Not at my place. Not at yours. Somewhere neutral." They met at a Starbucks on Sunrise Boulevard, the kind with a drive-through and a patio that nobody used because the traffic noise was too loud. Greg was already there when she walked in, holding a latte, wearing a polo shirt with the dealership logo on the chest. He'd gained 15 pounds since the divorce. She noticed it the way you notice a crack in a wall. You don't mean to, but once you see it, you can't unsee it. "I heard about Saturday," he said, before she'd even sat down. "Tasha told me. She said things got heated." "Things got heated?" Carla set her purse on the chair beside her. "She called me a financial abuser in front of 30 people, Greg, at an 11-year-old's baseball game." Greg stirred his latte, even though there was nothing to stir. "She's under a lot of stress. The kids are fine," Carla said. She heard her own voice go tight and stopped. Took a breath. "Greg, I need you to tell her to stop. Whatever this is, whatever narrative she's building, I need it to stop. I work with people who live in this community. My boss lives in Rockland. I can't have her telling people I'm abusing children." Greg looked at the table. "I don't think I can control what Tasha says. You're her husband." "Yeah," he said, almost to himself. "I am." The silence between them lasted long enough that a barista called out a name and neither of them moved. "She feels like you abandoned the kids," Greg said finally. "You were in their lives for years, then the divorce, and you just pulled back. She thinks if you cared, you'd help. I didn't pull back. She pulled them away from me." "And helping with what, exactly? Mia's private school? Jake's travel team?" "I don't have a legal obligation, Greg. You know that." "I know." He still wasn't looking at her. "Then tell her." Greg nodded slowly. "I'll talk to her." Carla knew, even as he said it, that he wouldn't. Not really. He'd say something vague. Tasha would cry or get angry, and he'd retreat to the garage or the TV, and the whole thing would blow over for him. It always did. That was the Greg she'd lived with for 12 years. The man who would rather let a problem rot than have an uncomfortable conversation. She left the coffee shop at 11:47. She remembered the time because she checked her phone in the parking lot and saw that Nadia had sent her a link to a Facebook post in a group called Roseville, Rockland Mom Squad. No drama. The post was long. It didn't name names. It didn't have to. "Sometimes the people who say they love your kids are the ones who hurt them the most," it began. "What do you call a woman who has more money than she could ever spend, who watches a family struggle and turns her back? What do you call it when she uses her privilege as a weapon against children?" Carla stood in the Starbucks parking lot with the sun in her eyes and read the whole thing. There were 147 comments. Most of them were variations of "I'm so sorry, you don't deserve this," and "people are awful." A few asked who it was about. Nobody answered directly, but one comment said, "We all know who." Another said, "She shows up to the games like nothing happened. Disgusting." Carla closed the app. She got in her car and sat there for a minute with the engine off. Her hands were steady this time. That was worse somehow, the steadiness. It meant she was already getting used to it. Monday morning, she dropped off a report at Wood Creek Middle School's front office. Mia had left a math workbook at Carla's place 2 weeks ago, and Carla had been meaning to return it. The office manager, a woman named Linda who'd always been friendly, took the workbook without making eye contact. "Tell Mia I hope she feels better," Carla said. Mia had posted on her Instagram story Sunday night that she had a migraine. Linda nodded. The nod was polite, the kind you give someone you've decided not to like anymore. Carla was walking back to her car when she saw Mia coming across the parking lot with a group of girls. Mia saw her. For half a second their eyes met. Then Mia looked down at her shoes and veered left, toward the gym entrance, taking the long way around. Carla got in her car. She didn't cry. She told herself she didn't care. That evening, she did what she always did when she was anxious. She cleaned. She vacuumed the condo, wiped down the kitchen counters, organized the pantry by expiration date. She was wiping out the microwave when her thumb slipped, and she opened Instagram instead of the Notes app. Tasha's profile was public. Carla had never looked before. She scrolled. 3 posts down, a photo from the previous weekend. Tasha, Greg, Mia, and Jake on a boat. Blue water behind them. The caption reading, "Quick Tahoe getaway with my people." The date stamp was Saturday. The same day Tasha had stood at the baseball field and told 30 people she couldn't afford Jake's team fees. Carla stared at the photo. Tasha was wearing sunglasses and a swimsuit that didn't look cheap. Greg had his arm around her. The kids were smiling. She took a screenshot. Then another. Then she opened a folder on her phone. She'd created it that morning, without really thinking about it, and labeled it Halloran. She dropped the screenshots in. She told herself it was just because she was a financial analyst. It was what she did. She noticed when numbers didn't line up. A woman who couldn't afford a $185 little league registration fee didn't rent a boat on Lake Tahoe. A family that qualified for free and reduced lunch didn't post pool days from their 4-bedroom rental. She was still sitting on her kitchen floor, the microwave cleaner in one hand and her phone in the other, when an email came in. It was from the school district's community services office, a mass email about activity fee waivers for the spring semester. She almost deleted it. Then she saw the line at the bottom. For questions about your existing application or eligibility status, please reply to this email. She stared at those words for a long time. Existing application. She called the number listed at the bottom of the email. A woman with a pleasant voice answered. Carla gave her name, said she was calling about a family she knew, she didn't say whose, and asked how the fee waiver process worked. Oh, it's straightforward, the woman said. Families submit a household income form. If they're at or below 185% of the federal poverty level, they qualify. For a household of 4, that's about $55,000 a year. $55,000. Greg made 75 base plus commission. Tasha made whatever she made. Even if Tasha made nothing, they were over the line. Can I ask? Carla said. Careful. What happens if someone's income changes after they apply? Well, they're supposed to report it. If we find out someone misrepresented, the woman paused. That's fraud, ma'am. We'd have to refer it. Carla hung up. She sat very still on her kitchen floor. The microwave cleaner had leaked a little onto the tile, leaving a clear puddle that was slowly spreading toward the baseboard. She didn't know what to do with what she'd just learned. She didn't even know if it was true. Maybe Tasha and Greg had applied honestly. Maybe the Tahoe trip was a gift from someone. Maybe the numbers added up in a way she couldn't see. But she'd been doing this for 18 years. She knew when a balance sheet was lying. Her phone buzzed. A text from Nadia. Are you seeing this FB shit? Carla typed back. Yeah. Then she added, before she could think better of it, I think she's lying about their income. To the school. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Reappeared. Nadia's reply came through. Call me. Now. Carla called Nadia that night, and they talked for an hour and 40 minutes, which was long even for them. Nadia wanted to go to the school district directly. Carla wanted to be sure. They compromised. Carla would keep documenting. Nadia would ask around quietly, among parents she trusted, to see if anyone else had noticed the same contradictions. For the next 2 weeks, Carla became a student of Tasha Halloran's public life. It wasn't stalking. She told herself that repeatedly. Tasha's Instagram was public. Her Facebook was public. The mom group posts were public. Carla was simply reading what Tasha had chosen to show the world, and she was noticing what didn't fit. March 4th, Tasha posted a photo of a manicure with the caption, treating myself because single mom life is hard. The manicure was acrylics with gel at a salon in Rockland that Carla knew charged $55 and up. March 7th, Tasha posted a reel of the backyard pool, steam rising from the water, with the text heated pool, year-round vacation. A heated pool in a rental house meant the landlord paid for it, or the rent was high enough to cover it. Either way, it didn't say struggling. March 9th. Greg posted a photo of a new Ford F-150 at the dealership with the caption Demo Days. Best perk of the job. Carla knew from their marriage that dealership demo cars came with a monthly stipend and insurance, but they weren't free, and Greg had told her, during the divorce, that the demo program had been cut. Either it was back, or he was leasing it on his own. March 11th. Tasha posted about Mia's medical bills, and how hard it was to keep up. The post got 203 comments, and several people offered to Venmo her money. Carla didn't know what medical bills. Mia was healthy. She'd had her annual physical in January. Carla had taken her because Tasha had been working. Carla saved every post, every screenshot. She created a Google Doc with dates and descriptions, and cross-referenced them against what she knew about the family's actual expenses. It was the same thing she did at work when a department's budget didn't reconcile. She was good at it. It was the only thing that made her feel in control. On March 14th, she decided to go to Tasha's house. It was a mistake. She knew it was a mistake, even as she turned onto their street, a quiet cul-de-sac in Rockland with olive trees in the front yards and basketball hoops and driveways. The house was the biggest on the block. 4 bedrooms, 3 baths. A 3-car garage, the pool in the backyard that Tasha loved to post about. The rent, Carla had looked it up on Zillow during a weak moment, was $2,950 a month. She parked on the street and walked up to the door. She rang the bell. Tasha opened it wearing yoga pants and a sweatshirt, her hair in a messy bun, and for half a second she looked genuinely surprised. Then her face shifted into something harder. Carla, she didn't step aside. What are you doing here? I want to talk, Carla said. About the posts. About what you said at the game. About the kids. Tasha leaned against the door frame. I don't have anything to say to you. Then listen. Carla kept her voice even. I'm not going to pay for Mia's tuition or Jake's travel team. I'm not legally obligated to, and I'm not going to be shamed into it. But I will say this. If you're having financial trouble, there are real ways to get help. Real programs. You don't have to... Have to what? Tasha's voice rose. Have to what, Carla? Beg? Humiliate myself? Because I'm not the one with the 6-figure job, and the paid-off car, and the condo that's probably worth $500,000. I'm the one raising 2 kids while their father is nowhere to be found, and my husband works 60 hours a week just to keep the lights on. Derek pays child support, Carla said. She didn't know why she said it. It just came out. Tasha's face changed. It was subtle, a tightening around the eyes, a flicker of something that wasn't anger. Then it was gone, replaced by something much bigger. How dare you? Tasha's voice cracked. How dare you come to my house and lecture me about my family? Derek Reyes is a deadbeat. He doesn't pay. He doesn't call. He doesn't care. And you think because you were married to Greg for a few years, you get to be part of this? You don't. You're the ex-wife. You're nothing to these kids. Tasha was crying now. Real tears. Snotty, ugly crying. The kind that was impossible to argue with. Behind her, Carla heard footsteps on the stairs. Jake appeared at the top, looking frightened. Mom? Go back to your room, baby. Tasha didn't take her eyes off Carla. This woman is here to upset us. I'm not, Carla started. Get out. Tasha's voice. 3 new applications for spring semester. Her car 3 rows over. She stood there under the floor fluorescent lights and read the text 3 times. I miss you. Mom says I can't talk to you anymore. She says you don't love us. Carla's throat tightened. She typed back, Jake, I love you very much. I've always loved you. The reply came fast. Then why don't you come to my games anymore? She stared at the screen. How do you explain to an 11-year-old that you stopped coming because his stepmother was publicly destroying your reputation and you couldn't take it anymore? How do you say I'm hiding without sounding weak? She typed, I've been busy with work. I'll come to the next one, I promise. She didn't mean it. She knew she wouldn't go. She was lying to him. The first lie, and it tasted like copper in her mouth. Okay, he wrote. Don't tell Mom I texted. Please, I won't, she wrote. Jake? Yeah, your mom is wrong about a lot of things, but she's your mom. Be kind to her anyway, okay? There was a long pause. Then, okay. Carla put her phone in her pocket and got in her car. She didn't cry. She'd stopped crying about this, which felt like its own kind of loss. She didn't tell Nadia about Jake's text. She didn't tell anyone. She told herself it was to protect Jake. It was also because if she told Nadia, Nadia would say, see, you can't quit. They need you. And Carla wasn't ready to hear that. On March 25th, she got a LinkedIn message from Derek Reyes. She stared at his profile picture, a man in a hard hat, standing on a construction site, sunburned, smiling like he had nothing to prove. His headline said Reyes Construction, licensed general contractor. His profile said he'd been in business for 11 years. He had 247 connections. The message was short. Hi, Carla. I know this is strange. We've never met, but I've been trying to reach you about Tasha and the kids. I think you might be in a position to help. Can we talk? My number is 9655Y142. Carla closed the app. She didn't respond. She told herself Derek was probably just another version of Tasha, another person who wanted something from her, another person who would use the kids as leverage. She told herself he was a deadbeat, just like Tasha said, and that reaching out was probably some kind of custody maneuver. She told herself a lot of things. What she didn't tell herself was that she was scared. Scared that if she talked to Derek, she'd have to admit that her information was incomplete, that her assumptions might be wrong, that the story she'd been telling herself, Tasha bad, Greg weak, Derek absent, Carla victim, might be more complicated than she wanted it to be. On March 28th, she ran into Greg at the Rayleighs on Fairway Drive. It was 7:30 on a Tuesday night. She was buying yogurt and cat food. She didn't have a cat, but her neighbor was out of town and she was feeding hers. Greg was in the cereal aisle, holding a box of Lucky Charms, looking tired. They saw each other at the same time. Neither of them moved. Hey, Greg said. Hey, he shifted his weight. I heard about the thing at the house. I'm sorry I yelled. Tasha was. She gets worked up. Carla said nothing. She's not a bad person, Carla. She's had a hard life. Her mom kicked her out when she was 14. She was homeless for a while. She doesn't trust that things will stay okay. So she overcompensates. This was new information. Carla filed it away without acknowledging it. Greg, is she telling the truth about Derek? About the child support? Greg's jaw tightened. I don't want to talk about Derek. That's not an answer. Greg looked down at the Lucky Charms. I have to go. Jake needs this. He walked past her. She could smell his cologne, the same one he'd worn for 15 years, something cheap from the drugstore that he'd refused to give up even when she'd bought him nicer stuff for Christmas 3 years in a row. She watched him go. He didn't look back. That night, Carla lay in bed and stared at the ceiling. She thought about Jake's text, about Derek's LinkedIn message, about Greg's refusal to answer a simple question. She had made a decision 2 weeks ago, to remove herself, to stay quiet, to wait for it to blow over. But every day that passed, the silence got heavier. Every day, Tasha's version of the truth got more solid, more real, more accepted. And Carla was starting to realize that the person she was protecting by staying quiet wasn't herself. It was Tasha. Carla called Derek Reyes on March 30th, a Sunday at 2:17 in the afternoon. She'd spent the whole weekend going back and forth. She'd typed his number into her phone and deleted it 4 times. She'd told herself he was trouble. She'd told herself it wasn't her business. She'd told herself a lot of things, and none of them had stuck, because Jake's text was still sitting in her phone, unread since she'd last looked at it at 3 a.m. Saturday night. And because Greg had looked at a box of Lucky Charms instead of answering a yes or no question, and because Carla was tired of being the person who looked away, Derek answered on the second ring. This is Derek. Hi, this is Carla Bennett. You messaged me on LinkedIn. A pause. Carla, hi, thank you for calling. I wasn't sure you would. His voice was deeper than she expected, slower, like he measured his words before he let them out. He asked if she wanted to meet in person. She said yes. They agreed on a diner on Auburn Boulevard, the kind that served breakfast all day and had vinyl booths that stuck to your legs. He was already there when she arrived, sitting in a booth by the window, drinking coffee, wearing a faded t-shirt and jeans. He was shorter than Greg, but broader, with calloused hands and a scar across his left eyebrow. He stood up when she approached, like his mother had raised him right. Thanks for coming, he said. She slid into the booth across from him. A waitress appeared with a coffee pot and Carla held up a hand. Just water, please. Derek waited until the waitress left. Then he said, I don't know what Tasha has told you about me, but I'm guessing it's not good. She says you're a deadbeat. She says you don't pay child support. She says you're not in the kids' lives. Derek nodded slowly, like he'd heard this before. I pay $3,200 a month. Every first of the month, automatic withdrawal. I have the bank records. I've never missed a payment. Not once. months. Carla said nothing. She was watching his face, looking for the tell, the flicker that said he was lying. She didn't see one. She told the school I was absent, he continued. She told the parents at the baseball field I was a ghost. She told Mia and Jake I didn't want to see them. The truth is, she blocked my number for 6 months. 6 months. I couldn't call the kids. I couldn't text them. I showed up at the house in October and she called the police, said I was trespassing. The cops came and I had to leave. I didn't see my kids from September to March. He said it evenly, but his hand was clenched around his coffee mug so hard his knuckles were white. I set up 529 accounts for both kids when Mia was 5. Each one has about $40,000 in it. Tasha knows. I've told her. She tells people I've done nothing for their future. Carla felt something shift in her chest. It wasn't surprise exactly. It was the sensation of a story she'd accepted without question beginning to crack at the edges. Why are you telling me this? Because I'm filing for primary custody. Derek set his mug down. I've had enough. My lawyer says I need witnesses. People who can testify that Tasha has been lying, that she's been alienating the kids from me, that she's been manipulating the narrative. And you're the ex-wife. You have no legal dog in this fight. If you say Tasha has been lying, a judge might actually believe it. Carla stared at him. You want me to testify against her. I want you to tell the truth, whatever that is. If you've seen her lie, say so. If you've seen her use the kids, say so. I'm not asking you to make anything up. The waitress brought Carla's water and took their order. Derek got a bacon cheeseburger at 3 in the afternoon, which Carla found impressive. When she was gone, Carla said, she told everyone I'm a financial abuser, because I wouldn't pay for Mia's private school and Jake's travel team. Derek's jaw tightened. Mia doesn't go to private school. She goes to Wood Creek Middle, public. Tasha applied to a private school in January but didn't get financial aid, so she didn't enroll her. She's been telling people Mia is in private school and you won't help with tuition? She told me that directly. Derek shook his head. She does this. She creates a version of reality and then she lives in it so hard she starts to believe it. The private school, the deadbeat ex, the struggling single mom, it's all a story. And the worst part is, the kids believe it. Mia thinks I don't love her. Jake thinks I forgot his birthday last year. I didn't. Tasha didn't give him the card or the gift. Carla thought about Jake's text. I miss you. Mom says I can talk to you anymore. She says you don't love us. She thought about Tasha, standing in her doorway, crying real tears, calling Derek a deadbeat. She thought about Greg, looking at a box of Lucky Charms, saying I don't want to talk about Derek. How much does she make? Carla asked. At the salon? The skincare stuff? Derek looked surprised. The salon? She works 2 days a week, maybe $1,500 a month. The skincare. She sells those creams on Instagram and Facebook. Cash mostly. Venmo and PayPal. My lawyer subpoenaed the records. She's averaging about $2,000 a month. None of it's on her tax returns. She told people she makes less than $2,000 total. She tells people a lot of things. Derek's burger arrived, and he looked at it like he'd forgotten he ordered it. She applied for free and reduced lunch at the school, didn't she? It wasn't a question. Carla nodded. Household of 4, she claimed $28,000 a year. Greg makes $75,000 base. I pay $38,400 a year in support. That's over $113,000. She claimed $28,000. He said the numbers like they were a wound. That's fraud, Carla. That's not a mistake. That's a felony. The word hung between them. Felony. Carla had been thinking of it as a lie, an exaggeration, a character flaw. She hadn't been thinking of it as a crime. I need to know, Derek said, leaning forward. If you'll testify. I'm not going to pressure you, but I need an answer. My lawyer wants to file by mid-April. Carla looked out the window. Auburn Boulevard was 4 lanes of strip malls and car dealerships and the occasional palm tree. A bus went by, advertising a personal injury lawyer. Everything looked ordinary. Nothing looked like the kind of day where you agreed to testify against someone who could lose her kids. If I do this, she said, she'll come after me harder than she already has. Yes, she'll try to destroy me. She's already trying. That was true. Carla couldn't argue with it. Let me think about it, she said. Derek nodded. Take a few days, but not too many. The longer she has control of the narrative, the harder it is to undo. She left the diner at 4:22. She sat in her car for 10 minutes before she could bring herself to drive. She called Nadia. The call went to voicemail. She didn't leave a message. She drove home on the freeway, the windows down, the March air warm enough to feel good on her face. She thought about the last 8 months, every humiliation, every whispered conversation, every time she'd looked away, because looking was too painful. She thought about Jake, 11 years old, texting her from an old iPad because his mother had taken his phone. She thought about Mia, 14, walking the long way around a parking lot to avoid someone who'd once taken her bra shopping. She thought about Tasha, crying on her doorstep, and she realized, with a clarity that frightened her, that Tasha wasn't crying because she was hurt. She was crying because it worked. Carla pulled into her condo parking spot and turned off the engine. She sat there for another minute. Then she picked up her phone and called Derek back. I'll do it, she said. But if this blows up in my face, I'm blaming you. Derek was quiet for a second. Then he said, fair enough. She hung up. She went inside. She opened her laptop. She opened the Halloran folder. 47 screenshots. A Google Doc. A growing list of dates and contradictions. She added a new document at the top. She titled it, Witness Statement. She stared at the blank page for a long time. Then she started typing. Tasha found out on April 3rd. Carla never learned exactly how. Maybe Mia overheard a phone call. Maybe Greg saw an email. Maybe Tasha had someone in the court clerk's office, the way she seemed to have someone everywhere. However it happened, by 6 p.m. that evening, Tasha had posted it. The post was on Facebook and Instagram simultaneously, and this time she didn't bother with anonymity. "I have stayed quiet for too long," it began. "There is a woman in our community who has been harassing my family for months. Her name is Carla Bennett. She is my husband's ex-wife. She has called me a liar. She has shown up at my home uninvited, and now she is conspiring with my children's absent father to take my kids away." Carla read it sitting at her kitchen table, her laptop open to the witness statement she'd been working on for 3 days. She read it twice. The second time she noticed the comments were already coming in, faster than she could refresh. "Can someone be so cruel that poor family? She should be ashamed. Some people never let go. I always knew there was something off about her." Carla's hands were steady. That was the thing she'd noticed later, the steadiness. Like her body had already accepted what her mind was still processing. The post went on. Tasha described Carla as bitter, obsessed, financially abusive. She wrote that Carla had inserted herself into Tasha's family and was now weaponizing the court system. She wrote that Derek Reyes was a deadbeat who hadn't seen his kids in years, and that Carla was colluding with him to punish a mother for moving on. By 8 p.m., the post had 312 comments. By 9 p.m., Carla had received 47 direct messages on Instagram, most of them from accounts she didn't recognize. A few were supportive, people who knew her, people who were afraid to say so publicly. Most were not. "Bitch, you deserve to be alone. No wonder he left you. Kidnapper, financial abuser is right." She turned off her phone. She sat in the dark. The condo was quiet, except for the hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of a motorcycle on the freeway. At work the next day, she could feel it. The way people looked at her, the way the break room conversation stopped when she walked in. Her boss, a woman named Patricia, who'd always been fair, called her into her office at 10:30. "Carla," Patricia said, sitting behind her desk with her hands folded, "there's been some chatter on social media about you. I know, I'm not going to ask you about it. That's your personal business. But I need you to know that if it affects your work, or if it starts affecting this office, we'll need to have a conversation." Patricia's voice was gentle but firm. "We're a healthcare organization. Reputation matters." Carla nodded. She understood. She also understood that "we'll need to have a conversation" meant if this gets worse, you might have to take a leave. Or worse. She went back to her desk and opened a spreadsheet. She stared at the cells for 20 minutes without processing a single number. Nadia called at noon. Carla almost didn't answer. "She did. I saw it," Nadia said. Her voice was different, quieter, less certain. "Carla, I'm so sorry." "Thanks. My husband saw it too. He thinks maybe I should take a step back. For now, the kids are getting questions at school. Someone asked my daughter if her friend's mom was the abuser lady. I can't." She stopped. "I can't have my kids in the middle of this." Carla closed her eyes. "I understand. I'm not abandoning you. I just can't be public right now. I'll still talk to you. It's fine, Nadia." Carla's voice was calm, calmer than she felt. "Take care of your kids. That's the right call." They hung up. Carla sat at her desk and felt the last thread of her support network snap. Greg posted his statement at 6:15 that evening. It was on his Facebook page, public, 3 paragraphs long. He said he stood by his wife. He said Carla's behavior was disappointing and unacceptable. He said he hoped Carla would seek help and move on with her life. Carla read it and felt nothing. Not anger, not hurt, not surprise. Just a flat, gray nothing, like the moment before a storm when the air goes completely still. She took the next day off. She called in sick, which she hadn't done in 6 years. She stayed in her condo with the curtains drawn and watched bad TV and didn't answer the door when the mail carrier rang because she'd ordered something she didn't remember ordering. At 3 p.m., she found herself sitting on the floor of her closet, surrounded by shoes she didn't wear, holding a photo album she hadn't looked at since the divorce. It was full of pictures. Jake's first t-ball game, Mia's 8th birthday, a camping trip they'd taken to Lassen when the kids were little. In every photo, Carla was smiling. In every photo, the kids were smiling. It looked like a family. She closed the album. She sat there for a long time, and then slowly, like something thawing, she started to feel angry. Not the hot, loud anger that made you yell or throw things. The cold kind. The kind that made you think clearly. She thought about her life. 12 years of marriage to a man who couldn't have an uncomfortable conversation. 2 years of divorce, during which she'd tried so hard to be the good ex-wife that she'd let Tasha walk all over her. 8 months of being called a liar, an abuser, a villain, while she'd said nothing because saying something would have been impolite. She was tired of being polite. She thought about what she was actually afraid of. Not Tasha, not the posts, not the comments. She was afraid of being disliked. She was afraid of being the woman people whispered about. She was afraid of being the villain in someone else's story. But here was the thing she'd been avoiding. She was already the villain. Tasha had made sure of that. Staying quiet hadn't saved her. It had just made it easier. She stood up. She put the photo album back on the shelf. She walked to her desk and opened her laptop. She opened the witness statement. She'd written 3 pages. She deleted the last page. It was too careful, too hedged, too concerned with being nice. She started over. This time, she didn't soften anything. She wrote about the baseball field, about the Facebook posts, about the money requests, about the visit to Tasha's house and the way Tasha had cried on cue, about Jake's text from the old iPad, about Greg's silence, about the Tahoe photos and the heated pool and the F-150 and the manicures and the GoFundMe that Tasha had started in February for family medical expenses that didn't exist. She wrote until her fingers ached. She wrote until the statement was 8 pages long, single-spaced, with dates and specifics and no hedging. writing. When she was done, she saved it. She emailed it to Derek's lawyer. She put her phone in the drawer and went to bed. She didn't sleep. But for the first time in months, she didn't lie awake feeling afraid. She lay awake feeling ready. The custody hearing was scheduled for May 14th. Derek's lawyer, a woman named Sandra Price with short gray hair and a voice like a file cabinet closing, prepped Carla for 2 hours in her office on K Street. She told Carla what to wear, neutral, professional, nothing flashy. What to say, the truth, all of it, nothing extra. And what not to do. Cry, argue, make eye contact with Tasha. She's going to try to provoke you, Sandra said. That's her whole strategy. She wants you to look angry. She wants you to look unhinged. If you give her that, we lose. I don't get angry, Carla said. Sandra looked at her over her reading glasses. Everyone gets angry, Ms. Bennett. The question is whether you let it show. The hearing was 3 weeks away. Carla spent those 3 weeks preparing. She organized her evidence into binders, screenshots, bank records Derek had provided, text messages, the witness statement. She made copies. She made backups. She color-coded tabs. It was the same thing she did at work during audit season, and it gave her the same feeling that if she was thorough enough, if she checked every box, the truth would win. On May 8th, 6 days before the hearing, Tasha showed up at Carla's office. Carla was at her desk, reconciling a departmental budget, when the front desk called. There's a woman here asking for you. Says it's a family emergency. Carla's stomach dropped. What's her name? Tasha Halloran. Carla told the front desk to call security. She said it calmly, with the same tone she used to request a new toner cartridge. Then she stood up and walked to the lobby. She wanted to be there when security arrived. She wanted Tasha to see that she wasn't hiding. Tasha was standing in the middle of the lobby, wearing a sundress and sandals, holding a phone. She was talking loudly, not to anyone in particular, just loud enough that the people in the waiting room could hear. I just want to talk to her. She's trying to take my kids. I just want to understand why. Carla stopped 10 feet away. You need to leave, Tasha. Tasha turned. Her face was red, her eyes wet. There you are. You can't even face me? You have to hide behind security? 2 security guards arrived. Mike and Dave, middle-aged guys who usually spent their days checking visitor badges. They moved between Carla and Tasha. Ma'am, Mike said, you need to step outside. I'm not doing anything wrong. Tasha's voice rose. She's stealing my children. Ma'am. Mike's voice was firm. Now. Tasha looked at Carla. For a second, the performance cracked. What Carla saw underneath wasn't anger. It was fear. Raw, unfiltered fear, like an animal cornered. Then Tasha turned and walked out. She didn't look back. The whole thing had taken 4 minutes, but the lobby had been full of people, patients, vendors, co-workers. Everyone had seen. Everyone had heard. Carla went back to her desk. Her hands were shaking, but she didn't care. She opened her email and wrote to Patricia. Tasha Halloran came to the office today. Security escorted her out. I wanted you to be aware, in case she contacts the office again. Patricia replied 3 minutes later. Thank you for letting me know. Are you okay? Carla stared at the email. Are you okay? It was the first time anyone in a position of authority had asked her that since this whole thing started. She typed back, I'm fine. Thank you. She wasn't fine, but she would be. That evening, Mia found her. Carla was leaving the Wood Creek Library. She'd gone there to use the color printer for her hearing exhibits, because the library printer was cheaper than FedEx, and Mia was sitting on the curb outside, wearing a hoodie and ripped jeans, scrolling her phone. Mia looked up. Their eyes met. Neither of them moved. Hey, Mia said. She sounded 14, half tough, half terrified. Hey, Carla hesitated. Are you waiting for someone? You. Mia stood up. She was almost as tall as Carla now. I saw your car in the parking lot. I've been waiting like 20 minutes. Carla's first instinct was to ask if Tasha knew she was there. She swallowed it. What's up? Mia kicked a rock. Mom says you're trying to take us away. She says you and Dad Derek are working together to put me and Jake in foster care or something. That's not true. I know. Mia said it fast, like she'd been practicing. I mean, I don't know for sure, but I remember stuff. I remember you taking me to get my first bra. I remember you staying with me when I had the flu and Mom was working. I remember Jake's birthday 2 years ago when you made that dinosaur cake, and it fell apart, and you cried, and we all laughed. Carla's throat tightened. She didn't say anything. Mom says you never loved us. That you were just using us to get back at her. Mia's voice cracked on the last word. But I don't think that's true. I think if you didn't love us, you wouldn't be doing this. You wouldn't be fighting. Carla took a breath. Mia, I'm not fighting to take you away from your mom. I'm fighting because your mom has been lying. About a lot of things. About your dad. About money. About me. And the lies are hurting people. They're hurting you. Mia was crying now. Quiet tears. The kind she was trying to hide. What's going to happen to us? I don't know. Carla didn't lie. But whatever happens, you and Jake are going to be okay. You have a dad who loves you. You have each other. And you have me. Even if I'm not there every day. Even if your mom says things about me. I'm not going anywhere. Mia nodded. She wiped her face with her sleeve. I should go. Mom will notice I'm gone. Mia, yeah? Your mom loves you. In her own way. She does. But love isn't enough if it's built on lies. You deserve the truth. Mia looked at her for a long time. Then she turned and walked away, fast, like she was afraid if she slowed down, she'd change her mind. Carla watched her go. She stood in the library parking lot until Mia turned the corner and disappeared. The hearing was in 6 days. Carla had her binders, her witness statement, her evidence. She had Derek and Sandra Price. She had a 14-year-old girl who just told her she remembered. She didn't have Nadia, not publicly. She didn't have Greg. She didn't have the community on her side. But for the first time in 8 months, she had something she hadn't had before. She had the truth, and she wasn't afraid to use it. The Placer County Superior Court building in Auburn was older than Carla expected, with marble floors and high ceilings, and a smell that was equal parts old paper and floor wax. She sat in the gallery on the second day of the hearing, May 15th, and watched Derek's lawyer lay out the case the way a carpenter lays out a house, one beam at a time, each one locking into the last. First, the child support. Bank records, 3 years of them, showing $3,200 every month on the first, automatic, never missed. Tasha's lawyer tried to say the money was insufficient given the children's needs, but the judge, Judge Holloway, a woman in her 60s with reading glasses on a chain, looked at the numbers and said, $38,000 a year is not insufficient. Mr. Torres, next. Then, the visitation. Text messages. Dozens of them, from Derek to Tasha, asking to see the kids, asking when he could call, asking if he could attend a game. Tasha's replies were short, hostile, or non-existent. The police report from October. Tasha had called 911 when Derek showed up at the house, and the responding officer had written in his notes that the children appeared to be aware of their father's presence and expressed no fear. The judge read that line twice. Then, the 529 accounts. Statements going back 9 years. $41,000 for Mia, $39,000 for Jake. Tasha's lawyer tried to say Derek had only set them up to avoid paying more support, but Judge Holloway cut him off. Are you arguing that a father saving for his children's college is a negative, Mr. Torres? Because if you are, I'd like to hear the legal basis. Mr. Torres sat down, then came the income. Sandra Price stood up. Your Honor, I'd like to introduce evidence regarding the respondent's reported household income on various assistance applications. Tasha shifted in her seat. Greg, sitting beside her, went very still. The first document was the free and reduced lunch application, dated January 12th. Household income reported, $28,400. The second was the PTA Community Care Fund application, dated February 3rd. Same number. The third was the activity fee waiver, dated February 20th. Same number. Your Honor, Sandra said, the respondent's husband, Gregory Halloran, is employed as a sales manager at a Ford dealership. His W-2 from last year shows income of $78,200. The respondent receives $38,400 annually in child support from the petitioner. That is a combined household income of $116,600. She reported $28,400. A murmur went through the gallery. Judge Holloway's pen stopped moving. She looked up. Ms. Halloran, is this your signature on these forms? Tasha's lawyer stood. Objection, Your Honor. This is a custody hearing, not a fraud trial. It's relevant to credibility, Your Honor, Sandra said. If the respondent is willing to falsify official documents, it speaks to her credibility as a witness and as a parent. Judge Holloway considered this. Overruled. Ms. Halloran, please answer the question. Tasha's mouth opened and closed. And my husband handles the finances. I don't. Mr. Halloran, Judge Holloway said, you're listed as a co-applicant. Is this your signature? Greg looked at Tasha. Tasha looked straight ahead. The silence in the courtroom was so complete, Carla could hear the clock on the wall. Yes, Greg said. His voice was barely audible. Did you review the income figure before signing? Greg swallowed. Tasha filled it out. I trusted her. I didn't check the numbers. You signed a legal document attesting to household income without checking the numbers. Yes. Judge Holloway wrote something down. Mr. Halloran, you may step down. Ms. Halloran, you're excused for the moment. We'll recess for 15 minutes. The gallery emptied. Carla walked out into the hallway and found Nadia waiting by the vending machines. Nadia had come back. She'd called Carla the night before, crying, saying she'd been a coward, saying she couldn't live with herself if she didn't stand up. Carla had told her there was nothing to forgive. They'd hugged in the parking lot of the courthouse and Carla had pretended her eyes weren't wet. How's it going in there? Nadia asked. Better than I expected. Tasha came out of the courtroom then, walking fast, Greg trailing behind her. She saw Carla and Nadia by the vending machines and stopped. You, she said, pointing at Carla. You did this. You turned my husband against me. You turned everyone against me. Tasha, Greg said, reaching for her arm. Don't touch me. Tasha pulled away. Her voice was rising, echoing off the marble walls. You think you're better than me? You think because you have a job and a condo and no kids you get to judge me? You don't know what it's like. You don't know what it's like to be alone with 2 kids and no one to help you. Derek helped you, Carla said. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. He paid you. He tried to see his kids. You blocked him. You lied about him. And then you used his absence to get money from people who felt sorry for you. Tasha's face went white. You don't know anything. I know you posted a GoFundMe in February for family medical expenses and raised $1,400. I know there were no medical expenses. I know you spent it on a weekend in Tahoe. I know because you posted the photos. The hallway was quiet. A few people had stopped to watch. A court clerk looked up from her desk. Tasha opened her mouth. Nothing came out. Then she turned and walked away, fast, her heels clicking on the marble. Greg stood there for a second, looking at Carla, his face a mixture of guilt and something else, maybe relief. Then he followed Tasha. The hearing resumed. Tasha didn't come back to the gallery. Greg did, alone, and sat in the back row. Sandra Price called her final witness, Coach Martinez, Jake's Little League coach, a sturdy man in his 50s who'd submitted a written statement and now appeared in person. He testified that he'd never seen Carla behave inappropriately toward the children. He testified that Tasha had yelled at Jake during a game in March, in front of the whole team, calling him a disappointment after he'd struck out. He testified that Derek had attended 3 games in the last month, and that Jake had played better than I've ever seen him when his dad was there. When Coach Martinez stepped down, Judge Holloway called both parties to the bench. Given the evidence presented, she said, I'm ordering ordering a temporary change of physical custody. The children will reside with a petitioner, Mr. Reyes, effective immediately. The respondent will have supervised visitation, 2 hours every Wednesday and every other Saturday, at a neutral location. A full custody evaluation will be conducted by the court's Social Services Division. I expect that report within 60 days. She looked at Tasha's empty chair. Where is Ms. Halloran? She stepped out, Your Honor, Mr. Torres said. Please inform her of the ruling, and inform her that failure to comply with the custody order will result in a finding of contempt. Carla sat very still. Effective immediately. The kids would go home with Derek today. Tasha wouldn't be there. She didn't feel triumphant. She felt the way she always felt after a big audit was over. Empty and tired, and aware that the hard part was just beginning. Greg left the courtroom without looking at her. Nadia squeezed her hand. Outside, the May sun was bright and warm, and the world looked exactly the same as it had that morning, even though everything had changed. The custody evaluation took 6 weeks. Carla didn't see much of the kids during that time. Derek had them at his house in Lincoln, a 3-bedroom he'd bought 5 years ago, fixed up himself, with a big backyard and a dog named Buster that Jake adored. Mia was finishing her freshman year at a new school, closer to Derek's house. Jake was playing baseball on a new team, the Lincoln Lions, and Derek went to every game. Carla talked to them on the phone sometimes. Jake told her about Buster, and about his new coach, and about how the cereal at Dad's house was way better than Mom's because Dad buys the sugary kind. Mia was quieter. She told Carla she was seeing a counselor through the school. She's okay, Mia said. She doesn't ask too many questions. Tasha had supervised visitation at a center in Roseville, 2 hours on Wednesdays, 4 hours on alternate Saturdays. Carla didn't know the details. She didn't ask. She was at work on June 19th, a Thursday, when her building's front desk called. There's a woman here asking for you. She says it's personal. She says her name is Tasha Halloran. Carla's first thought was, not again. Her second thought was, she's not stupid enough to come back here after last time. She told the front desk to send her up. Not to her desk, to the small conference room on the 3rd floor, the one with the glass walls and the door that locked from the inside. She told security to stay nearby. She wasn't taking chances. Tasha was sitting at the conference table when Carla walked in. She looked different. Not the put-together, Instagram-ready Tasha from the baseball field. This Tasha was wearing sweatpants and an oversized t-shirt, no makeup, her hair pulled back in a ponytail that was coming loose. There were dark circles under her eyes. She didn't stand up when Carla entered. She didn't say anything. She just sat there, looking at the table. Carla sat down across from her. What do you want, Tasha? Tasha laughed. It was a hollow sound. You know what's funny? I used to be afraid of you. I thought you were this perfect person. The good wife. The stable one. The one Greg should have stayed with. And I hated you for it. Carla said nothing. I was 14 when my mom kicked me out. Tasha's voice was flat, like she was reading from a list. She had a new boyfriend and he didn't want kids around. She told me I was old enough to take care of myself. I lived in a shelter for a year. Then I lived with a friend's family for a while. Then I got pregnant with Mia at 17 and married Derek because he was nice and he had a job, and I thought, this is it. This is where the bad part ends. She looked up. Her eyes were wet, but she wasn't crying. It didn't end. Derek was nice, but he was never enough. Not enough money, not enough time, not enough anything. And I was so scared, Carla, all the time. Scared the rent wouldn't clear. Scared the kids would go hungry. Scared they'd end up like me. In a shelter, with no one. So you lied, Carla said. I survived. Tasha's voice sharpened. I did what I had to do. If I told people Derek paid support, they wouldn't feel sorry for me. If I told people I had money, they wouldn't help. I needed help. You needed someone to blame, Carla said. You needed a villain. And I was convenient. Tasha didn't deny it. She sat there, and for the first time, she didn't perform. She didn't cry on cue. She didn't raise her voice. She just looked tired. The evaluator talked to me yesterday, Tasha said. She asked me why I told the kids their dad didn't love them. I didn't have an answer. She asked me why I applied for assistance with fake income. I didn't have an answer. She asked me why I called you a financial abuser. I told her because you refused to help. She said, help with what? You weren't entitled to her money. I didn't have an answer for that either. The conference room was quiet. Through the glass wall, Carla could see people walking by, going about their day, unaware that 2 women in a conference room were having the most honest conversation either of them had ever had. I'm not going to apologize, Tasha said. Not because I don't mean it. Because if I start apologizing, I don't think I'll stop. And I need to be strong right now. For the kids. The kids are with Derek, Carla said. They're safe. They're fed. They have a dog and a backyard and a dad who shows up. You don't have to be strong for them right now. You have to be honest. Tasha flinched like Carla had slapped her. You told Mia I was grooming her, Carla said. It wasn't a question. The custody evaluator's report had mentioned it. Tasha had raised the concern in her interview, then backed off when pressed for details. You told the evaluator I was inappropriately close to your daughter. That's a serious thing to say about someone. Tasha looked at her hands. I was desperate. I thought if I could make you look bad, the evaluator would side with me. I knew it wasn't true, I knew it. But I said it anyway. Why are you here, Tasha? Tasha looked up. I came to tell you that the report comes out tomorrow, and I know what it's going to say. I know I'm going to lose. And I wanted you to know that I know why. It's not because of you. It's because of me. Every lie I told. Every time I chose being a victim over being a mother. She stood up. Her legs wobbled a little, like she'd been sitting too long. I'm moving to Sacramento, she said. Small apartment. Full-time at the salon. The evaluator said if I stay in therapy and follow the rules, I can get unsupervised visitation in 6 months, maybe. She walked to the door, then she stopped. Jake asked about you. Last visit. He said he misses your pizza nights. Carla's throat tightened. Tell him pizza night is Fridays. He knows the address. Tasha nodded. She left without another word. Carla sat in the conference room for a long time after. She didn't feel vindicated. She didn't feel relieved. She felt the way she imagined you'd feel after surviving a car accident. Shaken, grateful, and aware of how close everything had come to being much worse. Her phone buzzed. A text from Greg. Can we talk? He'd written. I owe you an apology. Carla stared at the text. Then she typed back, not today. She put her phone away and went back to her desk. She had a budget to reconcile. The world didn't stop because Tasha Halloran had finally told the truth, but something had shifted. The air in the office felt lighter. The spreadsheet in front of her looked less daunting. And when Patricia walked by and said, how are you holding up, Carla? Carla smiled and said, I'm good. Actually, I'm good. And for the first time in a long time, she meant it. The custody evaluation report came out on June 20th. Derek got primary physical and legal custody. Tasha got unsupervised visitation every other weekend, plus Wednesday evenings, on the condition that she continue therapy and submit to random drug testing. The report was 47 pages long. Carla read the first 3 and stopped. She didn't need the details. She knew what it said. Tasha's deception pattern, her emotional instability, her alienation of the children from their father. It said what everyone who'd been paying attention already knew. The school district's investigation into the fraudulent assistance applications took longer. By mid-July, they determined that Tasha had received approximately $2,400 in improperly awarded benefits, free lunches, activity fee waivers, PTA care fund grants. They demanded repayment and referred the case to the district attorney's office. Carla didn't know if charges would be filed. She hoped they wouldn't be, not for Tasha's sake, for the kids. Greg lost his job at the Ford dealership in late June. He told Carla in a text. 3 sentences. No drama, just the facts. The dealership had been getting negative reviews mentioning his name. The general manager had decided it was a distraction, and he was out. He'd found a new job selling insurance in Sacramento, starting in July. He was living in a 1-bedroom apartment near Arden Fair. He and Tasha had filed for divorce. It was amicable, he said. They'd agreed on everything. Carla texted back, I'm sorry about the job. Good luck with the new one. That was all. No reconciliation. No lingering feelings. Just 2 people who'd been married for 12 years, and now had nothing to say to each other except polite nothings. It was, Carla thought, probably the healthiest their relationship had ever been. Nadia and Carla had repaired things, but not in the way you see in movies. There was no big tearful reconciliation. They'd just started talking again, slowly, the way you rebuild a wall 1 brick at a time. Nadia brought over takeout one night. They watched a reality show and didn't talk about any of it. Then a week later, Nadia said, I should have been there. I'm sorry I wasn't. Carla said, you're here now. And that was enough. Mia was seeing a therapist once a week. She and Carla talked on the phone every Sunday. Not long conversations. 20 minutes, half an hour. Mia told her about school, about a boy she liked, about how her mom had showed up to visitation on time 2 weeks in a row, which was weird but good. Carla told her about work, about the new cat she'd adopted, a tabby named Mochi who slept on her keyboard. They didn't talk about the trial or the posts or the lies. They didn't need to. The silence between them was different now, honest instead of loaded. Jake came over every Friday. Pizza night, just like before. He'd ride his bike from Derek's house, 4 miles. Derek said it was fine. Jake wore a helmet, and they'd order a large pepperoni and watch a movie or play video games. Jake was 11, going on 12, and he talked a mile a minute about baseball and Minecraft and how Buster had eaten a whole loaf of bread off the counter and thrown up on the rug. Carla listened. She didn't try to be his mom. She was just Carla, the person who'd always been there, who'd gone away for a while, and who was back. The All-Star game was on July 18th, a Saturday, at Maidu Regional Park. Jake had made the All-Star team for his new league. Derek had texted Carla the schedule 2 weeks earlier. She'd almost said she couldn't make it. Then she thought about the last time she'd been at that field. The cold bleachers, Tasha's voice, the walk to the car, Jake's small wave from the on-deck circle. She bought a foldable chair, the same kind as before. She showed up early. The field looked the same. The same snack bar, the same gravel path, the same faded wooden scoreboard in left field. The parents were different. New faces, new folding chairs, new coolers. Nobody knew her. Nobody whispered. It was just a baseball game on a Saturday in July. She sat behind the third base line, same as before. Jake saw her when he came out of the dugout. He waved. Big, enthusiastic, the kind of wave an 11-year-old gives when he's not embarrassed to be seen with you. She waved back. Tasha was there too. Carla saw her when she arrived, 10 minutes late, walking alone, carrying a folding chair, wearing jeans and a t-shirt, no makeup. She sat on the opposite side of the field, near first base, by herself. She didn't look at Carla. She didn't make a scene. She just sat there and watched the game. Jake led off the second inning, same as before. But this time he didn't ground out. He took a ball, then a strike, then he crushed a fastball into the gap in left center. It rolled to the fence. Jake rounded first, then second, head down, running like his feet were on fire. The throw came in late. He slid into third, dust flying, and stood up grinning. Carla stood up and clapped. She didn't cheer loudly. She never had. But she clapped and she smiled, and she didn't care who saw. Across the field, Tasha was clapping too. The game ended. Jake's team won, 8-4. Jake ran over to Carla, his uniform dusty, his face red, and gave her a hug that smelled like sweat and Gatorade. Did you see that? He said. Did you see it? I saw it, she said. That was the the best double I've ever seen. It was a triple, he said, grinning. Right, a triple. My mistake. He laughed and ran off to find his dad. Carla watched him go. Then she looked across the field. Tasha was gathering her chair. She looked up and their eyes met. For a long moment, neither of them moved. Then Tasha nodded. Just a small nod, almost imperceptible. Carla nodded back. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't friendship. It was something smaller and more honest than either of those things. It was recognition. We were both here. We both survived. We both loved those kids. Carla packed up her chair. She walked to her car. The same CRV, still reliable. Still paid off. She got in and turned the key. The engine turned over. Her phone buzzed in the cup holder. She picked it up. A text from Nadia. How was the game? Carla typed. He hit a triple. Nadia replied, Attaboy. You doing okay? Carla looked at the field through her windshield. Parents were packing up coolers. Kids were running around with popsicles. The sun was starting to go down, turning the sky pink and gold over the foothills. She thought about the woman who'd sat in these same stands 4 months ago, folding her chair methodically, walking away without looking back, her hands shaking so badly she could barely drive. That woman had been afraid of everything, of being disliked, of being wrong, of making a scene, of the truth. That woman was gone. Carla typed back, I'm good. Really good. She put the phone down. She put the car in drive. She pulled out of the parking lot and onto the road, the windows down, the July air warm on her face, the baseball field shrinking in the rearview mirror. The season was over. But the next one was only a few months away, and she'd be there.